What's new, Pokecrew? It's UturnCrobat here, and I'm bringing you a new video. But before I get started, please make sure you give a like to this video to help support it. This video is going to be called Pokemon Competitive Battling for Dummies, or competitive Pokemon battling, whatever, for dummies. You'll see it on the thumbnail, but I kind of just wanted to I really wanted to give you guys a little bit of help. A lot of people don't really know how to competitive battle, so I figured I would just kind of put in my 2 cents and just kind of give you a rundown of the basics and everything. So what you really kind of want to look at first thing are the IVs, and what the IVs are is they're called individual values, and you have 31 of them, and they're basically what you're born with. It's what makes you you, in a sense, and it increases your stats by 1 point. So 31 IVs means plus 31 stat points. So just kind of think about this whole thing as a person. So the IVs are you, and EVs will be your muscle. So for IVs, you always want to look for, 31. If you get into a random encounter with a Pokemon, they might be randomized. They might have 27. They might have 31. It doesn't really matter what you run into, but you really kind of want to try and have 31 IVs on your Pokemon. That's why everyone is really looking for a 31 or 6 IV Ditto, and what they mean by 6 IV is that right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's what they mean when they say that they're looking for a 6 IV Ditto, because they want 31 in each of the 6, I guess, categories, you can say. So that's what they mean. And if you're breeding, you would want a 6 IV Ditto, so then you could pass those IVs onto the Pokemon that you want, if that makes sense. So what it really is just, it helps out. So it kind of is your motivation, in a sense, I guess, because what I'm thinking of when I mentioned that you're in a gym, working out and everything, that without the IVs, your EVs aren't gonna help a whole lot. So it's kind of your motivation. Without the IVs, you're not really getting anywhere. So the IVs do help, really. They kind of help boost the attack or the defense or the special attack or whatever your Pokemon is. It kind of helps out, and I do recommend your Mons having 6 IVs, just in that regard. So moving on to EVs. Now, EVs are your effort values, and you have a total of 508. Now, effort values, like I mentioned, is your muscle. So defeating enemy Pokemon, eating vitamins, going through super training are ways to gain EVs. Pokemon that has ever had Pokerus, even if it's worn off, will get you double EVs from battle. So EVs, let's say, because right here, you can see that we have 508 EVs to use. So you can spread them out anywhere you want. So let's say I want 252 in HP, and I want 252 in defense. Now, Showdown is a really, really great site to use, just so you can see how many EVs you have left. So I highly recommend everyone using Showdown if they're going to be team building. So before you gen, before you breed, whatever, you have an idea of what your Mon is going to look like, and you can change things up too. So if you don't want 252 HP, and if you don't want 252 in defense, let's say you want 252 in defense, and you have 256 remaining. So for instance, you could just do 200 in HP, or you could do I don't know, let's say 56 in defense. You could just spread them out. You could even do, 50 in defense and just put 6 in anywhere. I mean, this is not by any means a good set for a Bronzong. Not at all. So, I mean, if you wanted to have a Pokemon be physically and specially defensive, then you can kind of do what I am doing and just kind of spread the EVs out so they are what you want them to be, you know what I mean? So you could have 252 in defense, you could have 252 in special defense, you could have the last 4 remaining in HP, or you could just spread them out like I was telling you, but put them in where they need to be. Now, a lot of Pokemon, well, with any Pokemon, they vary. The EVs vary, so you can just kind of put the EVs where you need them. So let's go to Victini here. So Victini is a, it can be a physical attacker or it can be a special attacker. As with Bronzong, Bronzong could be a wall. It's usually a wall that people use with Stealth Rock, and this moveset right here, I was going to be using for one of my NPCC battles, but just didn't have the chance to use. So we didn't get around to making the EVs or anything. But like I was saying, Bronzong is good for a wall, so you usually just want to make it either physically defensive, especially defensive, or both. So with Victini, you can have it be a physical attacker or a special attacker, because it does know, it does get Blue Flare and Fusion Bolt and V-Create and all those moves. So you could really have it be for both, but normally you see it being either a physical attacker or a special attacker. So for instance, you could have, I don't know, 252 in attack, and you have 256 remaining. So you could put those 256 EVs anywhere you want. So if you wanted it to be a little bit of a mixed attacker with physical and special attacks, you could, let's say, just do 200 in special attack and let's say 56 in speed because you wanted to outspeed certain things. So this would be one way to do it. Now, you kind of have to look at how many EVs you have left in order to spread them out to where you want them to be, if that makes sense at all. So, for instance, you could just have, I don't know, let's say, if you wanted to kind of take some hits, you could have 41 special defense and 67 in attack, and the rest, let's say, we could do like 300 in speed or some shit. I don't know. Just wherever you want them, you can put them, if that makes sense. So, like I was saying, Victini is a physical attacker, and it can be a special attacker, or it can be run as both. So it's really up to you how you really want it. Showdown helps you out by giving you suggestions before you start putting EVs, and it'll give you suggestions as to what they think your mon should be. Usually it is a fast physical sweeper, Victini, so that's why it's helping you out there. Now, if you want your mon to be scarfed and outspeed certain things, then you would want all the speed, not all the speed EVs, but quite a few EVs in speed, and have it hold a scarf because you wanted to outspeed certain things. So if you wanted Flygon to have this moveset right here, Defog, Outrage, Earthquake, and U-turn, then you could have it hold a scarf and put the EVs in speed, so you know that it is going to be outspeeding some of the threats that Flygon has. Now, if you want to have a last-ditch effort using Flygon as a scarfer, and if rocks are on your side, then you could easily outspeed whatever is in front of you at that point in time, and just defog the rocks away. It really helps out. And having a Scarfed Outrager, it really helps, because you could put in a Scarfed Flygon late game, and as long as there aren't any mons that are resisted to Dragon, then you could just spam Outrage and win the battle there. Now, we have a wall, we have a physical attacker, we have a Scarfed attacker who has defog to get rid of the rocks and whatnot. Now, if you want a special mon, if you want a Pokemon that will be your special attacker, I'm going to be going into items here a little bit later on. But for Nidoqueen is usually used as a special attacker. Now, the ability that you would want, and I'm going to be talking about abilities here in a second as well, but you would want Sheer Force, not Poison Point. Sheer Force, it's one of the better abilities that Nidoqueen gets. And if you really want some coverage on Nidoqueen, Earth Power, Sludge Wave, and Shadow Ball and T-Bolt is what we are going to use in that battle, the NPCC battle, because we needed coverage. So this is what we were going to use. But as you can see from this list, Nidoqueen gets a variety, just a variety of moves. Just a huge plethora of moves. And so you can put whatever you want on it. You could put whatever you want on your Nidoqueen. Just as long as it has coverage, it's always good to have that. So, looking at the EVs, you would really want this thing to be a special attacker. So, you could have just the normal 252 in special attack. Let's say you want 252 in speed because Nidoqueen isn't that fast. You could have the last 4 in HP. So that helps. And I feel like it's really up to you regarding how many EVs you want in each stat. Like I mentioned, you could just throw out the EVs wherever you would want. Now, if you want a physical or special wall, like Bronzong would be your physical wall, well, special wall, and Vaporeon would be your physical wall, you would just throw the EVs in defense and in HP. Like I said, you could throw them out wherever you want. Just as long as they work for you, it's always good. Scolipede usually is a speed boosting physical attacker. I was gonna say mega attacker, but physical attacker. So with Scolipede, you would want the EVs in attack and in speed. You don't necessarily need it in speed because it has speed boost, and if you have protect on it, then it will be outspeeding quite a few things. So you don't necessarily need EVs in speed. If you wanted to take a hit or two, you could have the EVs in defense and in an attack. That always works too. But going into natures, now these help a lot because on Showdown, when you get into Showdown, then you have an option of all of these natures right here. And so you have Adamant, which boosts attack and special. It boosts attack, but it doesn't have any special attack. So plus attack minus special attack. Bashful, you have Bold plus defense minus attack. Brave plus attack minus speed, and so on and so forth. So if you want a Bronzong to be specially defensive, then you kind of have to look at what you have for options and kind of go from there. So you could have, let's see. See, you could have Bronzong be sassy, that ups special defense but minus speed. Because if you have Gyro Ball on Bronzong, then you do not want to give it any speed IVs or any speed EVs. Because having this sassy nature and having no IVs in speed and no EVs in speed will allow Gyro Ball to hit hard on Pokemon that do not resist Steel. So having that nature, I feel, would help. Now, you of course can you can absolutely change it to whatever you want. Have it be sassy. Have it be whatever you want. If you want it to be physically defensive and not specially defensive, then you could go Lax, because that is plus defense and minus special defense. So you could put the EVs in defense and have a lax nature, so you can eat up those physical attacks. Now, for Victini, like I mentioned earlier, is a physical or it can be a special attacker. The norm is physical, so you would want attack, which is plus attack minus special attack. Or if you wanted it to be a special attacker, you could do, let's see, you could have it be mild if you want it to be a late game sweeper. You could have it be plus special attack minus defense. If you know you're going to be outspeeding things, then mild would be a pretty good ability to have. Or even modest with special attack minus attack. That would be the normal nature to give it, just because it does boost that special attack. And if you have the EVs and special attack, then having the IVs and the nature and whatnot, it will help boost that special attack. Now, like I mentioned, Victini is usually a physical attacker, so you would want EVs in the a physical attack set right there, or physical, the attack area right there. So V-Creep is one of the moves that I'm going to go into after I talk about natures right now. But for speed, if you have a choice Scarfer, and if you wanted to outspeed a lot of things late game, then Timid is what you would want. But looking at this moveset, Outrage, Earthquake, and U-Turn, you don't really want timid because it's plus speed, but it's minus attack. So you don't really want speed. You want to kind of look for a nature that boosts speed and perhaps minus special defense or something. So you have all of these options right here. So for instance, you could have naive, which is plus speed minus special defense. If you want this thing to be a late game sweeper and you know that you can at least take a hit, then you could have a naive nature if you want to go that way. But like I mentioned, you have all of these options to really choose from. You just have quite a few things to choose from regarding natures. And a lot of Mons are timid, a lot of Mons are modest, adamant, bold. So you have a lot of things to kind of think about when you are making your team. Now for Nidoqueen, because it is slow, we could just go modest because it is plus special attack minus speed. So 9 times out of 10, you will see a modest Nidoqueen. Now you may even see a timid Nidoqueen every now and then, just so it gets that extra speed because it is slow. So you might see a timid Nidoqueen, but 9 times out of 10, you will see a modest Nidoqueen with Earth Power, because Earth Power is one of the greatest ground special moves, and Sludge Wave, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt for coverage. So having the ability Sheer Force is always a good ability to have on a Nidoqueen. I'm going to be going over abilities here in a second, but Nidoqueen will definitely be either modest or timid. If you wanted to go physical, which is, I've never really seen a physical Nidoqueen, but I guess you could go adamant, you could go anything really, you could go whatever you want. Whatever your little old mind thinks about, you can do it. So Vaporeon is next, and so for a nature for a physical mon like this, if you want it to be physical, because it does have good physical defense, it does have good special defense, so if you want a physical Vaporeon, then you would want bold. If you want a special, if you want a Vaporeon to sponge up those special hits, then you could go, you could go gentle, really. You could even go, let's see, you could even go sassy. Whatever nature boosts the special defense, that's what you would want. But you have to keep in mind that Vaporeon has really good special attack too. So you don't want a nature that boosts special defense and minus the special attack. You don't want that at all. If that's the worst case scenario, and if that's what you need, then so be it. But I wouldn't really recommend that, because looking at that special attack stat, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Scald, Whisper, Protect, and Baton Pass is what we are going to be using now. Looking at Scolipede would normally be adamant. I wouldn't recommend putting it as timid. You can if you want, but it has speed boost, so with Protect, you don't really need it to be timid. So moving on to abilities. Now Bronzong has the Levitate ability. Levitate is one of the better abilities to have on Bronzong, because as you can see right here, this Pokemon is immune to ground, gravity, Ingrain, Smackdown, Iron Ball, stuff like that. So 9 times out of 10, you will see a Bronzong that has Levitate. Now, you may even see a Heat-Proof Bronzong, because Heat-Proof, the power of fire types attacks against this Pokemon is halved. So, you're not going to be getting hit hard by a Flamethrower or anything, but I would still stick with Levitate if your team needs it. If it doesn't need any Levitate users, then you could go for Heat-Proof. So, for Victini always has the ability Victory Star. This Pokemon and its allies' moves have their accuracy multiplied by 1.1. So that's the only ability that you should be giving Victini, because that's the only ability Victini gets. So Victory Star is really good. Now for Flygon, you could really give it, well, the only ability it has, Levitate, just like Bronzong. Now Levitate is really good when you're expecting an Earthquake. Levitate is really good when you're expecting toxic spikes or spikes. Now Levitate is one of the better abilities. So for Nidoqueen, like I mentioned, Sheer Force is a great ability to have on it. If you really want it to have Poison Point, so be it. I mean, Poison Point. 30% chance a Pokemon making contact with this Pokemon will be poisoned. But because your Nidoqueen is going to be special with, I'm going to be going on to items here shortly, but if you wanted to have choice specs or Life Orb is the better ability because with the Recoil, Sheer Force is, activated. So with Sheer Force, this Pokemon's attacks with secondary effects have 1.3 times power. Nullifies the effect. So having a Life Orb on a Sheer Force Nidoqueen is always good. You could lock it in with choice specs, but I wouldn't really recommend it. Life Orb is one of the better items to have on a Sheer Force Nidoqueen. So for Vaporeon has Water Absorb and Hydration. A lot of people use Hydration. I don't even know if Hydration is out, but everyone uses Water Absorb because this Pokemon heals 1/4 of its max HP when hit by water moves. So if you're expecting someone to throw out a Scald your way, then you will want to bring in your Vaporeon on said Scald. Or if you're predicting a Hydro Pump, then you will want to move your Vaporeon in on said Hydro Pump. Because if you are holding leftovers, and if you are at low HP, then you will want all that HP back. So having Water Absorb helps your Vaporeon very much. Also having leftovers, those two really do help Vaporeon if it's low HP. Now for Scolipede, the only ability that I will want to see on Scolipede is Speed Boost, because if you don't know what Speed Boost does, this Pokemon's speed is raised one stage at the end of each full turn on the field. So first turn, you want to protect, get the speed. Second turn, you're already going to be outspeeding things. Third turn, and so on and so forth, you're going to be outspeeding even Scarfers. So having Speed Boost on Scolipede is one of the better abilities. Its other abilities are Poison Point and Swarm. Those aren't really that good, so I highly recommend Speed Boost. Now, going on to items. So if you are going to be using a wall, like Bronzong here, for example, having an Assault Vest will work, but you cannot have Toxic if you're going to have an Assault Vest. If you want Bronzong to tank some hits, having an Assault Vest will work, but you definitely do not want to have Toxic, because if you have an Assault Vest, the holder's special defense is 1.5 times, but it can only select damaging moves. You cannot use Toxic, Protect, all that stuff. Now, if you want this thing to be a weird physical attacking variant, which is very, very odd, having a choice band on it will help. If you want this thing to have I don't know, like I was gonna mention, you could have a Focus Sash on it and just get rid of all its defenses, so it can't take any hits first turn. So having a Focus Sash, I guess, would be useful on that. But Leftovers is the main item that you will have on any walls. For Bronzong, you can have Leftovers, because at the end of every turn, the holder restores 1/16 of its max HP, which is always amazing, which is always good. You do have every single item to look for, to kind of choose from. If you are predicting someone to use a Flare Blitz, or if you're predicting someone to use a U-turn or any physical hits, and if you know your Bronzong can take any physical hits, and if you don't really want your Bronzong to have any recovery, then you could have a Rocky Helmet on it, because if holder is hit by a contact move, said Flare Blitz or U-turn, the attacker loses 1/6 of its max HP. So having a Rocky Helmet on some of your walls will definitely help you out in the long run. So if you have Wish on Vaporeon, and if you don't really need Leftovers on Bronzong, then having the Rocky Helmet will help. You literally can pick from every single item in this list. Every single item that Pokemon has created, Nintendo has created, whatever, you can absolutely have anyone hold anything. So you can really choose whatever you want. But for walls, the normal item is Leftovers. Now, if you want to have your Bronzong no explosion, then you could have Power Herb. No, what was it? Holders 2-turn moves. Nope, that's not Power Herb. I forget. But anyways, Bronzong, you could have Explosion on it. Now, for Victini, like I said, Victini can hold anything. Any Pokemon can hold anything. But the items that you should really be giving Victini are a Choice Band, Choice Scarf, Choice Specs, or Life Orb. You could have Victini hold Leftovers. You could have Victini hold Assault Vest. If you want Victini to be able to take some special hits, then having the Assault Vest will be helpful. If you want Victini to outspeed everything late game, because Victini's base stats are all at 100, just like with Mew, all of its stats are 100. Victini's stats are all at 100. So you could have a Choice Scarf on Victini. Late game Victini will outspeed everything. Now, if you want your Victini to be special, then you could have Choice Specs on it. And like I was telling you earlier, you could have Blue Flare instead of V-Create, because Blue Flare is the special V-Create, if that's how you want to look at it. Now, Blue Flare has a 20% chance to burn the target, and its power is 130, accuracy is 85, which is amazing. And that's really what you would want for a special Victini. I mean, of course, you don't want to have Bolt Strike, because Bolt Strike is physical, so let's say you want to have, let's say, Dazzling Gleam for coverage, I don't know. Or even whatever else that you want for coverage. Focus Blast, maybe, even. You can have that, and Choice Specs will definitely help that move out. Choice Specs, Holder's special attack is 1.5 times, but it can only select the first move it executes. So you will be locked in. If you use Blue Flare, you will be locked in. You cannot use Dazzling Gleam. You use Dazzling Gleam, you cannot use Blue Flare. But that's only the first turn. First turn, you're thinking, okay, first turn I'm going to bring Victini out, but I'm going to use Blue Flare. The Choice Specs Blue Flare is going to heart. You can do that. As soon as you switch out, when you switch back in, you're allowed to use Dazzling Gleam, you're allowed to use Focus Blast, you're allowed to use anything. But the very first move that you choose, you will be locked into that move until you switch out and go back in again. So you have to be kind of careful when choosing those choice items. Choice Specs, Choice Band, Choice Scarf. Those are the items that are great, but you are locked into them, so just be careful with that. Now for Flagon. The Flagon can hold a Life Orb. You know, if you want Outrage to hurt, a Choice Scarf Flagon is very, very useful. Even a Choice Band Flagon is a thing, because having the Outrage, Earthquake, and U-Turn with a Choice Banded Flagon, it will hurt. It really, really will. And Choice Band, the holder's attack is 1.5 times, but it can only select the first move it executes, just like with Choice Specs. But this is talking about physical attacks, like Outrage, Earthquake, and U-Turn. So that's one thing you have to be careful for. If you want your Infernape to be banded, if you want your Flagon to be banded, if you want your Scolipede, why the freak would you want a Scolipede to be banded? I don't know, you're weird. What if you want it to be banded? That's fine. But if you want any of your physical attackers, and I'm going to be getting into physical attackers and special attackers and everything like that just a bit later on, but having a Choice Band on a physical attacker is always a plus. I would put Leftovers or Life Orb on Flagon, just for the default. You don't really want to be locked in, so that may help. Now, having a Choice Specs on Nidoqueen, because we already have Specs on Victini. Having Specs on Nidoqueen is one of the choice items that I highly recommend, but at the same time, I would also just put on Life Orb instead of Choice Specs. Either Choice Specs, Life Orb, they both work, but I highly just encourage you to use Life Orb on Sheer Force Nidoqueen, because the Life Orb will power up Sheer Force, and of course with Earth Power, Sludge Wave, Shadow Ball, and Thunderbolt, Sheer Force with special attacks like those is going to hurt. So you just wanna be careful with what items you give your Pokemon. You want to be smart about it, really. So for Vaporeon, you could really have it hold whatever. Scald, Wish, Protect, Baton Pass. Now with Wish, Protect, and Baton Pass, you're not allowed to hold the Assault Vest. So you could have Leftovers on Vaporeon. Because it knows Wish, you don't really need Leftovers, so you could have the Rocky Helmet as well, just so you can damage your opponent when it attacks you, If you want to have Citrus Berry, that's fine too, because Citrus Berry restores 1/4 max HP, 1/2 max HP or less. It's a single use. So once you use it, you can't use it anymore. So having leftovers or having Rocky Helmet on Vaporeon is always a couple of good items that you would want on said mon. So for Scolipede, the only item I would want to see on any Scolipede would be Life Orb. I mean, hell, you could have leftovers on a Scolipede. That's a thing. You could definitely have that. But I highly just recommend Life Orb. I mean, if you want to use Scolipede to the best of its ability, then I highly recommend Life Orb. Because of the Poison Jab, Mega Horn, Baton Pass, Protect, you protect first turn, you get that speed boost. You can even Baton Pass and Baton Pass all of that speed to anyone. And having the Mega Horn as stab and having the Poison Jab as stab, I mean, in the Life Orb, it's just gonna pack a huge punch, and that is one thing you kind of want to look for on your team. You want to have items that can assist your team. So if you're using a Sneasel or someone who can't really take any hits, let's say you have, I don't know, let's say you have a Sneasel and you want to be able to knock off and get the win or whatever. You want to get some initiative or something. I don't know what the game plan is for you, but let's say you want to do that. You're going to bring Sneasel out and it's going to get hit because you can't outspeed because you didn't pack any EVs in speed. So you want Sneasel to hold a Focus Sash, and you would want Sneasel to do whatever it is that you wanted it to do. So having a Focus Sash on a couple of Mons is always good because it can surprise your opponent and take them off their game, so that's always a plus. So we went over abilities, we went over items. I think right now I should just talk to you guys about the differences between physical attackers and special attackers. Like I mentioned, there are some mods like Victini who can be both, who can be physical and special. Now, if you want your Victini to be physical, then you would want a V-Create. Now, when you're on Showdown, when you are team building, because like I mentioned earlier, I recommend you going on to Showdown and team build before you gen or before you breed. So let's say you want to have a physical, you can't breed Victini, but let's say you want a physical Victini and you're doing soft resets to get the 6 IV. So you want this to be physical. So you have V-Create, you have U-Turn for initiative. Now you want to get rid of Dazzling Gleam. So let's say you want to get rid of Dazzling Gleam. You have a few things that you can choose from. You could have Fusion Bolt. Fusion Bolt is a good coverage move for Victini, because if you're in the way of a Vaporeon, and if you're predicting Vaporeon to use a Scald, and if you know you can live one Scald, then you can use a Choice Banded Fusion Bolt, because Fusion Bolt is electric and it's physical. And the power doubles if used after Fusion Flare. So you would want Fusion Flare as well, but just for this set, just for this specific set right now, let's say you are going to be using Fusion Bolt. No water type in the world wants to take a Fusion Bolt from a banded Victini. No one wants to take that at all. So you have U-Turn for initiative, and you want to get rid of Energy Ball because Energy Ball is special. Now when you're on Showdown, you can see the differences between special and physical. This right here, this little symbol right there, is special. Bolt Strike right there, as you can see right there, it's physical. But you want to get rid of Energy Ball. Hell, Energy Ball is special. You want a physical attack on Victini. So you could have, let's see. I mean, you could have Protect. Protect does nothing, but Protect helps you to scout, and Protect helps you to regain leftovers if you have leftovers on your mon. That's not what I want. What the hell? Sorry about that. You can have, Return. You could have anything. I mean, I would just really go for V-Create, Fusion Bolt, U-Turn, and I mean, Protect is a good coverage move. You could have really anything. Final Gambit, I guess. Facade. I mean, I wouldn't run Facade, but it's really up to you. I mean, having Brick Break is also a good coverage move, because instead of having Focus Blast, you can have Brick Break. So V-Create, Fusion Bolt, U-Turn for initiative, and Brick Break. That's always a good little set you could have. Obviously, it's really up to you. and obviously you can kind of choose whatever the hell you want. But keep in mind, Victini can be physical and it can be special. Now, Flygon, taking a look at its base stats right here. Its special attack is 80 and its attack is 100. So Flygon can really be both physical and special. You'll normally see people running a physical Flygon just because its attack stat is 100. But you will see sometimes that Flygon will be special because its special attack is 80, so it's not that bad. So you could have Defog, but let's say you don't want Defog. Let's say you want this thing to be a choice banded late game attacker. So you want this thing to have all the physical attacks in the world. So you want to get rid of Defog. So having Outrage, having Earthquake, and U-turn for initiative are always good. You could have Dragon Claw, but you have Outrage, so you don't necessarily need two physical dragon attacks in that sense. But the thing is with Outrage and Dragon Claw, see, Outrage, even though you're banded, you're still kind of locked into Outrage. So even if you ran Life Orb, you would still be locked into Outrage after 2 or 3 turns. And after 2 or 3 turns, it does confuse you, so you may not want to run Outrage, but literally everybody who I have seen runs Outrage, because Outrage is a powerful stab attack that you would want on Flygon. I mean, if you don't want the confusion, then just run Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw is good too. But I suggest just playing it safe, just kind of seeing what you have for options, and just kind of going from there. You could have a power-up punch. You could be different and just have a power-up punch Flygon with Life Orb, because the power-up punch, if you don't know, it's 100% chance to raise the target's attack by 1. So let's say you want to raise your attack along with Life Orb, so your attack is already getting a lot heavier, a lot more. So now your Dragon Claw and Earthquake and U-turn will hit a lot harder. So for U-turn is a good initiative move to have on Victini and Flygon, just because U-turn, it just gives you initiative. If you're predicting someone to switch out, then you can just U-turn and gain that momentum in battle. So having those moves like U-turn, Baton Pass, Volt Switch, they're always good. Moves to have. So for Nidoqueen is always going to be run as special because of Sheer Force. Now, Nidoqueen, you can, like I mentioned earlier, Nidoqueen has a plethora of moves it can learn. It could learn Avalanche, it could learn Ice Beam, it could learn Dragon Pulse, Dragon Tail, just really anything. As you can see right here, it learns just Fire Blast, Flamethrower, Focus Blast. So you can have so many coverage moves, it's insanity. You could have War, you could have Rock Slide, but you get the idea. You see all these moves it can learn. So you can just choose really any coverage moves that Nidoqueen gets, and you'll be fine. Just make sure it's not locked in, make sure you give it a Life Orb. You're more than welcome to give it a Choice Specs, but keep in mind, Choice Specs you will be locked in, and Life Orb kind of helps with the Sheer Force, because Sheer Force is this Pokemon's attacks with secondary effects have 1.3 times power. So I mean, with the Life Orb, it kind of helps Sheer Force. So I recommend having Life Orb, but you could also just have leftovers. You could have specs. I'm not going to tell you what you should be, or I'm not going to tell you what you need to be running. I'm just telling you what you should be running. So for Vaporeon, it learns just anything. Vaporeon is a wall, but looking at its special attack, it can be a special attacker as well. It really can. But 9 times out of 10, maybe 8 times out of 10, you'll see a Vaporeon be some sort of wall, either physical or special. Because what I mean by that is that it can take physical hits and it can take special hits. So looking at that, you would want moves to kind of help out your team. So you would want Wish, because you want to pass that Wish off to, let's say your Victini is injured and it's at red. You want your Wish to bring back all that HP to Victini, because you can use Wish in Protect. So if your Vaporeon is getting weakened, then you could just very well, just wish and protect to get all that HP back on your Vaporeon. Even if you want Victini to get all that HP back, just wish and switch out. It's really, Wish is a great move that Vaporeon gets, and having Baton Pass helps too. It's just like Volt Switch and U-Turn. It's initiative, it's momentum. And so having Scald is one good move because Vaporeon's special attack is pretty good. It's pretty good. And you get that slight chance it'll get a burn. But like I mentioned earlier, having leftovers, having Life Orb, having I don't know, Rocky Helmet. You know, these are good items to have on Vaporeon because it is a good wall, and you know it's a good special attacker as well. Scolipede now. Scolipede is a great physical attacker, as you can see right here. Poison Jab, Mega Horn, Baton Pass, Protect. But let's say you don't want Baton Pass. Actually, no. Let's say you don't want Protect. You could go for Aqua Tail. You could go for Double Edge, Facade. You could have a Flame Orb on. You could have a Flame Orb on Scolipede, whatever. Because for Facade, the power doubles if the user is burned, poisoned, or paralyzed. So let's say you, instead of Life Orb, you wanted to give it a Flame Orb, because that activates Facade already. So you first turn, you don't have Protect. You could just you could go for an attack, and you know that you're going to live. So now the Flame Orb will activate, and you can hit Facades on anything that doesn't resist. But normally I see Protect on Scolipede just for the first turn. They can automatically get that speed boost up because they don't want to have to worry about taking any hits. So that is basically everything. I talked about IVs. I talked about EVs. I'm gonna kind of tell you a little bit about items. I already discussed a little bit about items earlier, talking about what should be holding what and whatnot, but you can literally have anyone hold anything. Just keep in mind, with Assault Vest, you can't use Protect, you can't use Toxic, you can't use Leech Seed, you can't use Thunder Wave, you can't use Will-O-Wisp, you can't use anything like that if you're holding an Assault Vest. So having an Assault Vest helps, but at the same time, you will want to be able to attack and everything else. So having an Assault Vest will help. Choice Banded will help your physical attackers. Choice Scarf will help your Mons who aren't that fast, or if you just want to play the game where you want to be able to outspeed literally everyone on your opponent's side, then you could pack a Choice Scarf on Victini or have a Choice Scarf on Flagon or anything really. So Choice Specs is good if you're going to be packing a special attacker. Like Victini, I mentioned, could be run as special or physical. You could have Choice Specs on Nidoqueen. You could have Choice Specs on, let me just give you a little example, actually, of who's special and who is physical. So Azumarill is going to be physical. Bisharp physical. Breloom is physical, I believe. I never use it. But for Mons like Deontay, it's going to be special. I'm not going to go through every single Mon, but Gardevoir is special, Gengar is special. You may already know who's special and who's physical, and you just needed help with understanding IVs and EVs, stuff like that. So you may already know all this. So I'm not going to go too much in depth with this. You may already know, and I don't want to waste your time. But, you know, Mons like Mega Pinsir is physical. Mons like Mew can be special and physical. Mega Medcam is physical. Raikou is special. Rotom is special. Can be used as well. So on and so forth. Superior is special because it learns Leaf Storm and all that hubjub. But just keep in mind of who you have on your team. And just go on to Showdown and see if that Mon can be used as a wall, or if that Mon can be used as physical or special. And then I feel like you'll have a better understanding of what your team needs. Now, there's also a team builder website that you can go to. I'm going to throw down the link in the description so you can go to that and you can see what your team is weak to. So then you can fix it up and you can get that coverage that you need. So if you are predicting your opponent to bring rocks, you could have a Defogger, or you could bring a Levitate user, or you could, you know, just have Rapid Spin, really. and you would want to know what checks your opponent's team. So if your opponent's bringing a Raikou, and if you're predicting a Volt Switch, you could bring in a Nidoqueen on a Volt Switch, and if you know he's locked in, then you can make the switch, the double, and go out into, let's say he's going to go out into Vaporeon for the Nidoqueen, you can just go out into a special or physical Victini and use that, the Fusion Bolt. Or you can kind of just go into, anyone, really, who can throw out any attacks that will harm your opponent's team. Do you know what I mean? And that is why I feel having the initiative on your side will help you better in the game. You're predicting a switch, go for a U-turn, go for a Baton Pass, go for a Volt Switch. If you're predicting a switch, then you could go for an HP Ice with Nidoqueen, with Raikou. You could go for an HP Ice on a predicted incoming Nidoqueen because you know that he's going to predict you to go for Thunderbolt, then you can just surprise him with an HP Ice and destroy that Nidoqueen. But I think I kind of went over everything. I went over IVs, I went over EVs, I went over some of the moves that that may be special or physical. V-Create, like I mentioned, is physical. Fusion Bolt is physical. Dazzling Gleam is special. Energy Ball is special. Fire Blast is special. Fire Punch is physical. Stuff like that. And that's one other reason why I want you guys to go on a Showdown before you make your teams, because these icons right here will tell you what is physical and what is special. So just be aware of that, and that'll help you out. I went over abilities, I went over items. I think that's really it. Now, for Amon, like, I just want to go over one other thing with you guys real quick. One other thing that I want you guys to be aware of. If you are going to be running, wow, I can't remember the move. If you are going to be running a return on your Lopunny, or a return on anyone really, but Lopunny is one of the better models to have return on it, you want their happiness to be at 255. That is the max happiness that a Pokemon can get. So that is the max happiness that you want your Pokemon to have if return is going to be hurting. Because with return, max 102 power at maximum happiness. So at max happiness, the return is going to hurt any Mon that is not resisted to a normal type attack. So be very, very, very aware of that. But I think I'm going to get the hell out of here. I think I explained a few different things. If you have any questions, though, please make sure you ask me in the comments, and I'll be sure to get back to you. But I hope all of you understand what I'm talking about. Like I mentioned, if you have any questions, let me know. I tried my best to go over everything. If you have any questions, I also have a Twitter. The Twitter link will be in the description as well. But I hope all of you have a great day, and I will catch all of you all on the flip side. Bye, guys.